Providing insights to help you grow your business, improve yourself, and add value to those around you. You're listening to the Success is a Choice podcast, where you get a peek into the lives of industry leaders as they share their stories with you.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Success is a Choice podcasting network. We have a very special show today. But before we get to our guests, remember, if you would, kindly smash, tap, whatever you got to do, that little like button, the little thumbs up, do that so you don't forget it later on. We appreciate it. That helps us keep doing this show, and it helps get the word out about the Success is a Choice podcast and all the great guests we have, because it's not about me, it's about those guests. And we have a great one today. Riley Gaines. Riley Gaines is on the show. It is really hard to list all the accomplishments Riley has done as a swimmer at the University of Kentucky, SEC country, but she's a 12-time swimming All-American, 5-time SEC champion. Her 2021 Kentucky team won the SEC championship. She's a 2-time captain, 2-time Olympic trials champion, or Olympic trials qualifier. She's done a lot of things. So Riley, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much. You definitely made me sound cooler than I really am. So I appreciate that.
Well, you are extremely cool because, one, you've had all the success. You went to the University of Kentucky, SEC. You also live in Tennessee. Everybody wants to live in Tennessee, or a lot of people want to live. Yeah, absolutely. It's a great state. So I want to hit you all. I want to start off with maybe the toughest question I'm going to ask you today. You're in the South. Which chicken sandwich is the best?
Ooh, oh gosh. Okay, so we have Hattie B's down here. I don't know if everywhere has Hattie B's, but Nashville staple. If you're coming to Nashville, go to Hattie B's and get a chicken sandwich. They are phenomenal. I of course like spicy, but they're really, really good.
Are you a chicken and waffle type person?
You know, I hate to admit it, but I definitely am. I thought after swimming, because when you're swimming so much, you have this appetite like all the time. And so I graduated in May. And so I thought when I was done swimming, all of these cravings, would kind of calm down, but that is not what we've seen. So I am still a chicken and waffle kind of girl.
Well, I know that there's a lot of debate sometimes between, Popeyes or churches, or you went to school in Kentucky, so Kentucky Fried Chicken. But I mean, but really the only correct answer is ChickfilA.
I do love ChickfilA. I went there yesterday morning, so I can't even lie. But I don't discriminate when it comes to fried chicken.
Yeah, my team would roll their eyes because they knew if I was in charge of where we were going to go eat, it was always going to be Chick-fil-A, because, man, they get your food. You line up as a team. You line up as a team, all your players order, and by the time you get up there to pay, they all have their food.
It's done. Yeah, you can't go wrong with Chick-fil-A.
No, they know how to do it. Where you go to some place like McDonald's and, you order, and then you go sit down and you wait for like 10 minutes for your food, and then they bring it out on trays. Not even like personalized to whose it is, and it's a free for all. And then at the end,
I love a McChicken too, though. So,
oh yeah, a little McChicken there at McDonald's, but making me hungry.
I know, right?
Absolutely. So, you think about all these successes, and I didn't even throw out everything that you did. You're SEC record holder in the 200 fly. There's so many different things you've done throughout the years, and as you think about all that you accomplished, what are maybe you most proud of? What's that achievement or that accomplishment you look back on and you're going to tell your kids about?
Honestly, I think my favorite achievements that I was awarded through athletics really have nothing to do with athletics. My senior year, I actually was awarded the SEC Scholar Athlete of the Year, which of course encompasses your academics and really just your leadership in the classroom. But on top of that, I was also awarded SEC's Community Service Leader of the Year. So of all SEC schools, all female athletes, I was the SEC Community Service Leader of the Year. So this is something that I definitely don't take lightly. Of course, being an athlete, you're kind of driven to be the best you can be in your sport, but I liked to try to be the best I can be across all aspects. And so winning those awards, I think it speaks more to who I am as a person, rather than just athletic achievements, which I'm, of course, very proud of as well. But at the University of Kentucky, I just had such an amazing support system within my coaches and my teammates and really the whole athletic department to push you to be the best outside of just the pool. And so those are things that I'm just really humbled by.
Well, the apple didn't fall too far from the tree, I would imagine, in your family. Your dad was a great football player at Vanderbilt. Your mom was a softball player at Austin Peay State University, and you went on to a lot of success at Kentucky. Do you feel like you had an advantage in terms of parents that were Division I athletes? Do you feel like that benefited you and helped you be kind of the athlete you were?
Definitely. I do think growing up with parents who know what it takes to compete at the Division I level, they were always pushing me, not necessarily in a way where it was anything I didn't want to already do on my own, but they instilled characteristics in me that allowed me to continue achieving. My dad, he did play at Vanderbilt. Then he went on to play, I believe, for a while with the Eagles. So this weekend is exciting for us. All of my uncles played in the NFL. My uncles have won Super Bowls, all of the things. And so I definitely think that genetically I am pretty athletic, which I'm blessed by. But that's not to say that there's not a ton of hard work that goes into it. But I do think my parents always kind of led me down the right path. And we're always just really supportive, which I know I'm really blessed by. There's a lot of athletes who don't necessarily have that from their parents. And so I'm extremely fortunate.
So when you guys have family get-togethers, is your Uncle Greg welcome in your house since he's a volunteer, since he's a Tennessee guy?
Actually, so we welcome him, but we don't welcome the color orange. Orange is not allowed ever since I was a baby. If my mom went to the little Gap and got me an orange shirt, it would be missing the next day. And it was because my dad had thrown it away.
So you have a dress code.
Oh yeah. Tennessee was out of the question for me to attend, which they're a phenomenal swimming school. They won SECs last year. And so, it was a very feasible option for me. It's close to home, amazing resources, athletics there, but that was very quickly vetoed. My dad was like, "You're not going there." He's like, "You don't want to live on Rocky Top." So I'm like, you know what? You're right. I don't.
Well, you actually, swimming wasn't the only thing you did. I understand that you were Little League World Series softball team.
I was. So I played softball and swimming pretty much all the way through until really it was time for me to choose schools. But at this point, I didn't even know which sport I was going to do. And so I truthfully thought I was going to play softball because, don't tell the softball players, but softball is easier than swimming. Swimming is hard. Not to say softball is not hard, but it's a different kind of hard. Swimming, you don't get to breathe and you're 2 hours at a time, drowning essentially. And so I was like, I want to play softball. But really when I actually put some thought into it, I thought swimming would be best for me. Swimming is something that you can do forever. Softball, of course, there's, masters type leagues, but I don't know. I just saw more benefit in swimming. And so that's kind of what I stuck with. But I took a couple official visits and I knew I did want to stay in the SEC. And so I went to where I always thought I was going to swim was University of Florida. I've thought it since middle school, like that's where I was going to be. I was going to be a Florida Gator. And so I take my trip there, and I don't know if I had just worked up all these expectations in my head of what it was going to be like, but I went there and it just didn't feel like home. I was like, I don't know, which was hard for me because again, that's where I thought I was going to be. And so I took a couple other trips, and then I finally went to Kentucky, and I just loved it. I mean, the town, the coaches, the team, it was just perfect for me, for what I wanted. It was close to home. So I could not be more happy with my decision to attend the University of Kentucky.
Well, you were a two-time captain there. What was some of the things that you did to help lead the team? And you mentioned community service, but what was some of the things you did to be a great teammate, to help other, because a lot of times too, and we have so many coaches, administrators watching this, but a lot of people too, they think of swimming not necessarily as a team sport. You know,
Right.
you keep score as a
Right.
team, but what did you do to kind of be a great teammate to help build that team?
Yeah. So my freshman year, our senior captains, I don't want to say toxic. They were amazing people and they were great swimmers, but the way they led, I could tell being a freshman that this was not the way the team would prefer to be led. No one wants to necessarily be talked down to. No one wants to be talked to in a condescending kind of way. And that's kind of the approach they took. And so being in that position as a freshman and kind of witnessing all this and really getting feedback from a lot of the girls in my class, the other girls who are older than me, I realized that this isn't healthy and this isn't going to get us to where we need to be as a team. And so when I became captain my junior year, this was really when COVID took effect. And so I'm not going to sit here and say it was easy trying to rally everyone together because we had just had the summer off, which never happens in swimming. You don't get to take time off, especially at the collegiate level. You're there through Christmas, you're there through Thanksgiving, you're there all summer taking classes. So when we got a couple months to go home, I was really stressed for our team because I thought, people will take this time off. They're not going to come back motivated. And so when we all finally returned back to campus, we sit down at the beginning of the season and I enforced us to talk about our goals. What did we want to achieve this year? And of course, everyone's goal was to win an SEC championship as a team because this is something our school had never done before. I believe we were second the year before. And so if we executed everything correctly, that's a very feasible thing we could do. And so what I did as captain was I really tried to use this COVID weird times as a way to continue advancing, where I knew so many other schools, so many other swimmers, they would use this time not to their advantage. And so I continually tried to remind everyone of the goals we set at the beginning of the year, because a lot of times I've found out that in the middle of the season, you kind of forget what you had talked about and you don't want to think about it until it's actually time, but then it's too late. It's too late to execute those things. And so I continually tried to remind everyone when they weren't performing well or when they weren't doing things as best as they should be, hey guys, we set this goal, just a reminder. And it seemed to work for everyone. People, I think, enjoyed being reminded of their team goals as well as their personal goals. And so when SECs finally came, we were in an amazing position and we won our first championship. And it was my favorite swimming memory, truly, just winning as a team, throwing our athletic director, Mitch Barnhart, in the pool. I mean, it was just like this surreal moment. And it just felt like truly all your hard work all year had paid off.
Well, when COVID was going on, lockdowns were going on, I'm guessing that it wasn't easy to get access to a pool.
Right.
So were you guys just going out in a boat and dropping yourselves off and swimming around lakes?
You're laughing, but that's actually what I did every day. Fortunately in Tennessee, we do have lots of lakes. And so I every day would put a wetsuit on and I would go out in the lake and I would swim just kind of aimlessly. I mean, there's no walls, there's no, so I'm just swimming around the lake. I'd go in the channel, I'd come back in the cove. I mean, miles every day, just because I knew this was the only thing that I could do to continue progressing. Because it's weird when you're just told go home. I had been swimming at this point, 15 years of my life every single day. And so when there's no pools open, it was kind of just like, what are we supposed to do? Of course, we could keep doing, outside work, either running or weightlifting type of thing. But the best exercise to improve your swimming is, of course, swimming. And so there are a lot of people who swam in the lake. It sounds kind of silly, but that's actually what I had to do every day.
So do you do triathlons? Do you do other things really to CrossFit, to stay in shape other than just swimming?
So now that I'm done swimming, I did do triathlons. Triathlon season ended, but it's going to start back up relatively soon. So I'll probably do those. I'm actually signed up for my first half marathon. So we'll see. I've been running some because I just like competing. I like competition. I like winning, honestly. And so when swimming ended for me this past March or May-ish, I was like, what am I supposed to do now? And so I'm finding different ways to continue staying active because, again, I still have that appetite. So I need to keep being active.
Well, earlier you made a comment that offended a lot of people, I think, when you said that you can't play softball forever. There's a lot of people
That's true.
that are playing some beer league softball well up in there in
That
age,
is true.
So you can find some church softball league or
That's true.
some
But
rec
every
league.
time I go to the YMCA and swim, I'm surrounded by like 85-year-olds. I'm like, this is amazing. And they're fast. I swear now, like that I'm done swimming, some of them could keep up with me. I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah, now a lot of people associate swimming with maybe lifeguards or even water skiing or other water sport. Do you do other things with the water sports, or is it really just swimming?
It's really just swimming. At the collegiate level, it's swimming and diving. So we actually do have some divers on our team who are just phenomenal. I mean, what they do is like crazy. They're jumping off the 10-meter backwards, flipping, twisting. Oh my gosh, I could not imagine. And so that's associated with their college team. It's scored, of course, a little differently, and sometimes we would go to different meets, but at NCAA's, we're all scored together, which is nice because it's a way for us to hold our divers accountable and our divers to hold the swimmers accountable.
So now that you're done swimming, is there something that you're like, yes, finally I can do this? I've not been allowed to do this for all these years. Maybe it's surfing, maybe it's water skiing, maybe it's snow skiing.
Honestly, it's really traveling, because when I was swimming, you don't get to go anywhere. You would travel for meets, but when you go to these meets, you go to the hotel, you take a nap, you go to practice, you come back to the hotel, you eat hotel dinner, you go to bed, you wake up, practice. So there's no like exploring or any of these fun experiences when you travel. And so now that I'm done swimming, I've been just about everywhere all over this country, and I have enjoyed it so much. California, Colorado, Maine, I mean, all over. And it's just been so fun because I never got to do that. And so it's enjoyable.
I'm not sure that many people would put Maine in the same breath that you just did when you're traveling around, California, Colorado, all these great places. Maine.
I loved Maine, actually, all the lobster.
Lobster. Hey, their slogan is "It's the way life should be." That's their state slogan.
Totally.
My wife and I actually honeymooned there, which is also something else very few people I think can say.
Yeah.
Is when you think about honeymoons, it's not, hey, let's go to Maine.
No.
But we did. We did.
That's awesome.
So growing up, you're playing softball, you're swimming. Were there role models? Were there some athletes that you really looked up to, maybe in those sports or maybe outside of those sports?
Yeah, definitely. Of course, in swimming, we have Katie Ledecky, who is just like a powerhouse. I mean, great at everything from like the 200 freestyle all the way through the longest event you can do, which is rare in swimming to have someone who's that good at that many events. Um, so that in swimming, there was a lot of softball players I looked up to because just going to different camps, you meet all these people. Jenny Finch, who actually went to University of Tennessee, gross, but she was phenomenal. So there are a lot of people, and of course, with my dad playing football, we all grew up watching football. Now, I never played football, but there's a lot of really awesome players like Tim Tebow and stuff who contribute more than just sports that I really enjoyed looking up to.
Well, Jenny Finch went to Tennessee. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes in life.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know, that's
I'll
one,
forgive her.
that's one fault I guess she has. But are there some mistakes or a mistake that you made as an athlete, maybe as a teammate, whether it was high school, youth, college, that you wish, that you regret, or that you learned from, that you were able to take this and become better or help your team because of that experience you went through?
Definitely. So when I first got to Kentucky, I mean, it was like the biggest adjustment for me because I, of course, swam in high school, but it was nowhere near the caliber to which we were swimming in college. And so we were in the water, I mean, 6 hours every single day. And so it was so hard for me to adjust. My arms were tired every day. I mean, my legs hurt. I thought I was going to die. I was like, I'm quitting. I'm going somewhere else. This school is not for me. And it took me a full probably year and a half before I finally got the right mindset, before I finally stopped making excuses for myself. It like hit me. I'm like, okay, we're all in the same boat. I'm not unique by being tired. I'm not unique by being sore. We're all tired and sore. So that's a stupid excuse. Um, and so probably around Christmas time of my sophomore year, that's when I kind of got myself together in terms of showing up every day with a good attitude, and really just developing a sense of consistency across not just, practice and competition, but my eating, my sleeping, my study schedule. I really just focused on trying to be consistent, which I now realize how important consistency is. And this is, again, far beyond sports and life. Just a sense of consistency will get you so far. But it truthfully took me a full year and a half. But once I kind of made that mental switch, I improved so much. I was a better teammate. I was a better, more coachable to my coaches. I was a better student. I was a better daughter. I'm sure I was a better girlfriend. So like I feel like across all aspects of my life, it really helped me improve.
Well, you're recently married, since you
I
mentioned
am.
girlfriend.
So it did help me be a better girlfriend in some capacity.
I guess so. It paid off. It was successful. And you guys are back living in the
Yes.
Nashville, Tennessee area. What is one thing that you wish in premarital counseling they had talked to you about?
Well, my husband he actually swam at Kentucky as well, but he's from England because they recruit from all over. And so when he first got here, I told all the other freshman girls, I was like, I call dibs on him. Like, y'all can find your own. And so really since then we dated, and now of course we're married, but we're in the process of building our first house now. We just bought 5 acres down in Tennessee, and we're doing everything from scratch. And so he works in construction, and so he's really taking the lead on this. But something I wish they told you in premarital counseling is how hard building a house with your husband who doesn't necessarily have the same taste as you is. We're like, I mean, paint, colors, cabinets, like we're just gonna, if we survive this, it'll be a miracle.
Yeah, what I remember from premarital counseling is we went deep on a lot of issues. We had a lot of deep conversations.
Right.
We needed to have a lot of trivial conversations because those were the things, do you want your shades open at night? when
Right?
you're
I know.
sleeping, where the thermostat, what is that set at in your
Exactly.
house? Those are the things that you actually have those
So
arguments
true.
about. I understand the deep things and the philosophical things
No, you're so right though.
but these little things that I was absolutely not prepared for in marriage that I've had to say, you're right, babe. You're right. Yeah,
Yeah,
my bad. My bad.
you learned. You've been trained.
I've tried, and her favorite line, and you can use this on your husband, Louis, right?
Yes.
Yes, you can use this on Louis. She has used this way too much on me throughout our marriage, but she says I would, for instance, I live in Ohio now. I used to live in the South, Tennessee, a
Yeah.
lot. She would say to me, I would hope that you would love me more than you like the warm weather.
Ooh, what's a tough one?
Yeah. Or going to a musical or going to the opera. I would hope you would love me more than you hate the opera. I'm like, oh,
Ooh,
I have no
I don't
response to that.
know.
I can't come back to that. Like there's
Yeah.
not,
What do you say?
and she's gone to the well a lot with that, but it still works.
Ah,
It's so you
well,
feel free to use that because
I
it does work.
definitely. I'm like writing notes.
Yeah,
I'll definitely use that.
it absolutely will work. But well, awesome. So transitioning from that, now you're working with the uh, oh my word,
Independent Women's Forum.
Independent Women's Forum. Wow.
Yes.
It escaped me. You can check out their website at iwf.org, iwf.org, the Independent Women's Forum. You're a spokeswoman for them. What are some of the things that you're doing? I know one of the big things that you talk about, a lot of people are talking about is save women's sports, is trying to just get lots of opportunities for women. Last year it was the 50th anniversary of Title IX, a big deal. And so you're a spokeswoman for the Independent Women's Forum. What is the Independent Women's Forum? How did you get hooked up with them, and what are some of the things that you're doing?
So the Independent Women's Forum is essentially a large organization that they're an independent group. So they don't necessarily align politically either way, but they dedicate themselves to fighting for women's rights at both the state and federal level. And so what I am doing with Independent Women's Forum is I'm really tackling the women's sports issue, like you mentioned. And so what this kind of looks like for me is I'm traveling to different states and testifying on behalf of keeping biological men out of women's sports. This is something that I feel convicted to do. I feel called to do it because I know I have a large platform as a successful athlete. And I think not using my experience and my testimony and my voice to advocate for women would be a disservice to myself and the past female athletes who fought for Title IX and the future female athletes who are to come. But it's a total 180 from what I was intended to be doing after school. I was actually supposed to be in dental school this year. So I've kind of put that on hold for a year while I'm pursuing this. But now, I hate to even say it, but I have my deposit in at the University of Tennessee's dental school. I know, but technically it's in Memphis, so it's not Knoxville, so it's like half of what University of Tennessee is. I'm still never going to call myself a Vol, but that's kind of where I thought I was going. But I think my life has gone down a different path the past year.
Yeah, in dental school, are you thinking about being a dental hygienist or a dentist or something else?
Actually, I think I'm interested in pursuing endodontics, which is like all the root canals, all that kind of fun stuff.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. So the work that you're doing for the Independent Women's Forum, helping keep biological men out of women's sports, that is not just a passion of yours, but it's part of your experience. It's affected you, or at least there's a personal story to that.
Right.
So share with our audience, and some of our audience might already be familiar with your story from that perspective. It doesn't define you. That's not who you are, but it is part of your story, your life story. And it's certainly led to what you're doing right now. So tell us a little bit about your story and what kind of propelled you into what you're doing right now.
Yes. So my senior year at Kentucky, so last year, I had made it my goal to win a national title. The year before, my junior year, I finished, I think, 6th or 7th. And so a lot of the older girls were graduating and I was continuing to improve. And so I saw no reason as to why I shouldn't make that my goal and why it wasn't achievable. And so about midway through our season, so about November of 2021, I'm ranked 3rd in the nation behind one amazing female athlete who I knew extremely well because, like most sports, your top tier athletes know each other. And so one female athlete that I knew well, but the girl who was ranked 1st, I'd never heard of before, which I thought was kind of bizarre, especially given the fact that this girl was a senior. I was like, oh, how weird. I've never heard of this person. And they just came out of nowhere senior year to post the fastest time in the nation by multiple seconds in multiple events. I thought, how interesting. And so I truly didn't think that much about it until a couple days after all these nation leading times were posted. An article was posted disclosing that Leah Thomas, who was the person leading the nation in all these events, was formerly Will Thomas, who swam 3 years on the men's side at UPenn. And so honestly, when I heard this information, we were, of course, able to look up Will Thomas when Will was swimming in the men's category and see the times that Will was going then. And so we saw that at best, when Leah was competing as a man, was ranked 462nd. And so when we're seeing this, having this all in front of us, this person going from 462nd to 1st in the nation, I thought surely the NCAA would see this and not allow Leah to compete with us at our national championships, just because it was blatantly unfair. Of course, men have biological differences in comparison to women. And I think everyone can agree on that. And so when our NCAA championships rolled around, the NCAA said Leah would, in fact, be competing with the women. And so that first day, we sat on the sidelines as Leah Thomas won a national title, becoming the fastest female in the country in the 500 freestyle. And then the second day, Leah and I raced in the 200 freestyle, to which we actually tied. We went the exact same time down to the 100th of a second. And so upon tying, the NCAA, when we go back behind the awards podium where they hand you your little trophy and you get paraded out, the NCAA looked at me and said, the official, he said, great job. You guys tied. We only have one trophy, so it's going to go to Leah. And so keep in mind, I don't really care about holding the trophy. I'm a 12-time All-American, so I have lots of those at home. But I questioned him. I was like, okay, I understand there's only one trophy, but can I ask you why you're adamant on giving this trophy to Leah? And he said, well, Leah has to have it for photo purposes. And so that's truly, I knew what was happening was wrong, but when he told me Leah got to take the trophy for photo purposes and I would be able to pose with the 6th place trophy, but have to give it back, that's when I felt like we as female athletes had just been reduced to this big photo op to validate someone else's identity at the expense of our own. And so that's kind of when I took it upon myself to use my platform to share my experience and share why I think it's wrong and a lot of different things that the media wasn't covering at the time, like the emotional blackmail that these girls are receiving from the universities about and efforts to silence them. And of course, what the locker room situation looked like and all of these different pieces that weren't being touched on and could only be touched on by someone who is directly experiencing it.
You mentioned the locker room situation. That is something that to me or to a lot of people, we might not like. How does that work? And explain that to us, because that seems like something that I wouldn't have thought of, or someone might not have thought of, but that's a realistic thing. How does the locker room situation work for this? And what was your experience like?
So typically the swimming locker room, first and foremost, it's not a place necessarily of like modesty. I mean, these suits you're putting on, they're skin tight. They take about 15 minutes to really like pull up your body. It's pretty terrible. They look like they would fit like a little child when it's not on your body. So it's just not a place of modesty. And growing up a swimmer, you get comfortable being kind of vulnerable in that way because everyone's in the same position. And it's a place of just buzzing and chatter, and you get to see your friends from all over. It's, the locker room is a fun place to be. You get to see so many fun people and talk and all the stuff. And so the first day, my teammates and I, because we talked amongst ourselves, we were curious as to what the locker room situation would be because we weren't told anything. We, of course, knew Leah would be competing against us, but we were so curious as to how the locker room scene will be. But that first day, we were in the locker room getting our suits on to go warm up. And all of a sudden, it just gets dead silent. And so I turn around because I had my back turned, and there's Leah Thomas, who is 6'4", pulls down the clothes and is fully intact as a male. And it truthfully just felt so violating as a female to be in a position where, regardless of how someone identifies, I mean, there's someone with male parts watching you undress. It just felt like this, like you immediately subconsciously just want to cover yourself. You're being exposed to while also exposing yourself. And so it blew my mind that no coach forewarned us. No one within the NCAA forewarned us. No one was talking about it. No one was sticking up for us. It just felt like I was living in a twilight zone because growing up, I was always taught, you shouldn't be in a room with a naked male while you're naked, unless of course it's your husband. And so in this situation, I was just kind of like baffled, like, how is this happening? How did we get here? And so that's kind of what that looked like. Again, we were not forewarned. We did not give our consent. No one asked us for our consent. And that to me was worse than the competition piece, really, was the whole exposing young girls to a naked man.
Was that addressed afterwards? Was that brought up to any meet officials or coaches, or because that to me seems to be at least a little, certainly what you said, some people would be uncomfortable. A lot of people would be uncomfortable with that. It seems like that would be something that you would try to rectify and try to find a solution for that.
Well, how the NCAA justified this was they said they made the locker room. So it was an all females meet. No men were competing at the meet. And so how they justified this was they said they made the locker rooms unisex, to which also blew my mind. Because I'm sitting here thinking, okay, you're telling me any man can walk in here? Any coach, anybody can just walk in our locker room because you had to make it unisex to accommodate for one person? You're putting so many girls, like it's at the expense of so many girls to accommodate one person. That was their justification. When we talked to, of course, to our coaches, he totally agreed with us. Like, he wouldn't want to be in that position as a young girl. But, what do you say? Who do you talk to? The people in NCAA, they seem to have an answer for everything, whether it was really justifiable or not.
Well, you have certainly had your fair share of criticism since this that you probably never thought you would have. Being a Kentucky athlete, unless you're a Kentucky basketball player.
Exactly.
That's not something you think about as an athlete, that you're going to get slammed on social media quite like that, especially as a swimmer.
Right. Right.
That's for football and basketball players. But, how have you handled some of that criticism? And, how have you kept moving forward? Because I know some of it you get called names, and we see this all the time, not just with your situation, but we see this all the time, that it's for instance, you're called a transphobe,
right?
Or other people will be called names, where I don't think that you're saying
Right.
I hate this person or we hate this. We're trying to
Right.
promote something else. And whether it's this or something else, often we see this. I was a basketball coach. If you start somebody differently the next game, the story is not that Riley has now earned her way
Right.
to start, or she did awesome and she's now starting.
Exactly.
It's all about, well, so
What
and so is
you
not
do.
starting anymore. So and so got benched. It's always the negative part of that. So, how have you handled the criticism and kind of what's your message? Because your message is not trans bad, these people
Right.
bad. Your message is something different.
Totally. At first, for me, it was tough because I knew putting myself in this position where I was actively, advocating for something in a way. I knew I was subjected to this kind of hate and stuff, but at first it was really hard for me because I know I'm not a hateful person. I know I'm not someone who inherently just hates one group because they're different than me. That's not how I was, raised. That's not what I exemplify in my day-to-day actions. So it was hard, but I kind of realized all of the hate comments and such I was getting was either you're transphobic, you're ugly. I mean, it was something about my personal appearance, or you're just bad at swimming. Why didn't you try harder? And so once I kind of realized that every negative comment I was getting wasn't about my argument, well, really at the time, nothing I was saying was opinionated. Everything I was sharing was strictly my experience. So when I realized that all of these negative comments and such have to do something about me personally, I realized that it doesn't really speak much of me. It speaks more about the person who's saying these things. And I am fortunate that I'm pretty secure in myself. I know myself. I know my intentions. I know my convictions. I know what I'm fighting for. And I'm not fighting because I openly hate transgenders. I have no animosity towards Leah Thomas or anyone who wants to identify however you want to identify. My problem in this situation is with the NCAA and the guidelines that they set in place to allow this to happen. It is not with Leah Thomas. I'm not anti-trans. Really, my take on this is pro-woman, which I would have never considered myself a feminist. But I think we've gotten to this point in society where I like to consider myself a modern-day feminist. I don't think biological men should be infiltrating into our spaces, into our competitions and stealing our scholarships and our titles and our awards and of course our safety in our sports and our privacy in our locker rooms. And that has nothing to do with what you want to do on your free time. If you want to identify however, that's fine, but don't make it infringe upon myself. Women fought relentlessly for Title IX, which was of course enacted 50 years ago. And this just feels like we're doing a 180 and time traveling back to 1972. Like it just feels like we're giving up everything that so many people fought for. And so that's my take on it. And that's why I'm taking the stance I am. But again, I'm secure with myself. I know myself. I don't necessarily seek validation from outside sources because I don't need it. And so when people want to tell me to, commit suicide or all of these terrible, awful, I mean, I've received some really awful things. And I realize it doesn't speak anything about me. It speaks about who's sending it.
Well, if you're a glutton for punishment and you would like to hear or see some of those things, you can watch when Riley was on the Tulsi Gabbard show. Tulsi read
Yes.
a number of those things. So if you're a glutton for punishment or you just like to hear that kind of stuff, hate mail, you can check out that episode that Riley was on with Tulsi Gabbard. But my mom will even talk about, she's still to this day proud of the fact that she was one of the first coaches after the Title IX. And it opened up so many doors for her.
Right.
50 years ago when Title IX came in. And it's just interesting because yes, you mentioned that you've won awards. You finishing tying for 5th with Leah at that point wasn't about you winning necessarily another award, but there are people, that's one instance, but there are people, whether it's Leah Thomas or someone else, that feel like maybe they're losing out on some things. Maybe somebody doesn't win when they were expected to win, or someone doesn't make a team, or somebody doesn't, make All-American.
Right.
And you had mentioned Leah Thomas had won the national championship the day before. She had beaten the second, third, and fourth place finisher were all Olympians.
Right. I mean, the best of the best female swimmers when Leah, not even a year ago, wasn't a woman. And so it just felt like watching that. I mean, these girls were American record holders, the fastest Americans ever. And watching Leah, you don't even have to be a swimmer to watch the race and see that Leah is not trying as hard as the others. You can tell just by visually watching it. The kick was not there. The walls are different. I mean, it sticks out like a sore thumb. And so to sit there and watch that happen was just heartbreaking. And the girl who so they take top 16 back at night to swim finals. So if you're top 16, you become an All-American. You're one of the fastest 16 people in the country, which is a huge honor. And so I was standing on the side of the pool in the morning when Leah was swimming, and the girl who placed 17th, so she missed being an All-American by one place. She actually swam at Virginia Tech. Her name is Reka. We were standing beside each other in the pool as we watched this final heat of prelims, and which she found out she was 17th, and she looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "I just got beat by someone who didn't even have to try." And it just gutted me. It just felt like we were going back in time. It just was a terrible, heartbreaking experience.
Well, we'll wrap it up with this last question. I know I've heard you speak very fondly of your coach at University of Kentucky, Coach Jorgensen. We have lots of coaches, leaders, educators that watch this show. Talk a little bit about what makes him so special, and almost this can almost serve as a motivation to the coaches watching this about what kind of impact they can have, as a reminder of the impact and influence they can have on their athletes or students that they work with.
Lars is just the best. He is the main reason why I went to the University of Kentucky. He is truthfully like my best friend. I think if I had to be bailed out of jail, I would call him in a heartbeat and he would do it. But he just possesses everything that an amazing coach should. When he took over, I think about 8 or so years ago at Kentucky, I mean, Kentucky swimming was the bottom of the SEC every year. But he's continually built the program to where we're winning team titles. We haven't placed below third in the SEC in, 4 years or so. And so he's just done a phenomenal job transforming the program. He enforces good culture, which is huge. I thought that was kind of silly when I got to college. I'm like, it's not about culture. It's just about working hard. But that is so not true. When our culture shifted, our mindsets shifted and we performed better. And so he enforces, good culture. Of course, like I said, he encourages everyone to succeed outside of the pool as well. In academics as well as in service. Every year we're the UK's team with the highest GPA, women's team with the highest GPA, which he did not take lightly. That was something we strived for, and he pushed us to strive for. But he just has this perfect balance of being funny, quirky, but also knowing when to hone in and kind of get it together, make you work hard. Just the perfect balance of everything a coach should have. And then, of course, this is, my personal experience with what I was dealing with in terms of speaking out and all those things. He was so supportive of me. And I truthfully think he would have been, regardless of where I stood on the issue. It's just because he loved me and cared for me as an athlete. And so he always encouraged me to speak my heart. He always was right in my corner no matter what I was doing. And this wasn't just me. This was all of our swimmers. And so we were really, really fortunate to have such an amazing coach. I know so many collegiate athletes don't have a good experience with their coach. And so for that, I am so, so grateful.
Do you think that Kentucky is going to be using in their marketing or recruiting materials? If I had to be bailed out of jail, I would call Coach Jorgensen.
Probably not. Probably not. But if there's anyone who would need to be bailed out of jail, it's probably me. And he knew that. There were times when he would just tell me, he's like, stop running your mouth. You're going to get yourself in trouble. I'm like, yeah, look where it's gotten me now. So he's definitely right.
Well, nowadays, you should have an NIL with a bail bondsman.
Oh, what a genius idea.
Some of these student athletes should have, they should have some deal.
Actually.
Man, that would be, that's sad. Well, if you think you need them, that's probably you're probably not going down the right path if you think you're going to need them.
No, probably not.
But Riley, we appreciate your time today. We know you're a busy girl. And in fact, you are, as we're taping this, you are in a hotel room in Washington, D.C. You were at the State of the Union address last night, literally at the Capitol as we watched on TV. So you are a busy girl. When you're not traveling to Maine, you are traveling to lesser places like Washington, D.C.
That's true.
But check out the stuff that the Independent Women's Forum is doing at the IWF.org. Also check out Riley's social media at Riley_Gaines_. We also have that in the show notes. That's Twitter. And then her Instagram, her IG is at Riley G. Barker. So Riley, thank you so much for checking in with us today. For everybody watching this show, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Rumble, maybe you're listening to this on the Success is a Choice podcast. Thank you so much. Remember, go ahead and kindly smash that little like or subscribe button. And until next time, remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today?